It's been a minute since I've uploaded to this channel. I hope all who are watching are doing well considering our current circumstances. Um, I wanted to make this video for a while. It was supposed to be released during like Black History Month, but things in my life got in the way. So if you're still rocking with me, like despite all the changes, despite what's going on, thank you. I really appreciate it. Anyway, depending on how long this is, you might want to go ahead and hit that 2 times button in the setting. Um, Maybe grab a little snack, and I hope y'all enjoy this yap session. So, a little bit about what I'm working on before we get into the topic of this video. What you're seeing here are concept illustrations for my graphic design novel, my graphic novel that I've been working on since like 2020. Like basically off and on, And I decided to do like the silhouette method to try to get the basic feel behind the characters that I wanted to design. The first three I work on are cyborgs, and the last three are the main protagonists for the first volume. Shout out if you've seen them on my Instagram or wherever. Uh, if you're curious to check out my progress, links to all my stuff regarding the graphic novel in the description. But like, I've been debating with myself um, as to what I should reveal and what not to reveal on the internet about my personal life for like a really long time now. I felt as though the audience who sees my personal journey has to like earn it in some form or fashion in order to understand the intricacies of my life and why I take year long hiatuses, why I felt like I didn't have it in me to commit to video creation anymore, or at least rather more than what I'm doing currently, um, which up until today I basically none. Let me put my phone away. uh, Speaking of phones, I was just able to get my phone turned back on after I lost service in December, so that was nice. Yeah, so like I've had a lot of like financial issues going on in my life that's stopped me from focusing more on my art and video creation and things like that. Um, it got me thinking like why I used to make the videos that I used to make, or why I choose to make the videos that I do now. You know, this one being one of them. Um, I have always viewed my creative process as a sharing as like sharing part of myself, for the sake of the art rather than, any possible fame that came along with it. Although that would be nice. Um Less so the fame, more so like being able to pay my bills with the money that comes with the fame. You get me. Whether that be like live streams, video essays, paintings, or whatever else I choose to create, Um this new video is only another attempt to try to express my inner world to more people in hopes that maybe it would connect with someone, and maybe help them in their situation as well, however that may be. Um, During all those times when I choose to share my thoughts and ideas and art with people online, there's always this thought in the back of my mind that I should abandon this project for another. Like, that I should, like, start a new project based off of some inspiration that I had, and maybe that will somehow get me the notoriety that I need to make my process of creating art in its many forms a more lucrative business, Um, and it sucks because I don't genuinely see art as a business. I see it as something that is fun and I like doing it. So, like in hindsight, would I have gone to art school to try to um, make this my business? Probably not. But I'm glad I did because I learned a lot. All of this to say, um, I want to make art my lucrative business because I'm good at it, and it would help me to survive to the next month and pay my bills, and to prove to myself and others that I made the correct choice by pursuing my art in the first place. Even now, as I read this out of my notes, I have other projects on my computer that I'm periodically hopping between. So sometimes I find myself wondering, like, what is the point of me doing all this? Like, why keep trying to create something that may or may not resonate with folks? Will there ever be, like, the break, like the big break, into financial stability through my creative ways that I want to? And if so, like, how will that happen? How else can I make art creation my full-time job? Will it just remain a part-time hobby and a passion? Which is worse, I came to the conclusion that most likely I probably won't be able to make money pursuing my creativity, or at the very least, it won't be a financial pillar in my life at this moment. However, that doesn't mean I should give up on trying, As I get better at my craft, I return to the thought that I could make the art that I make financially, as I return to the thought that I could make art the financial stability I need, I guess rather, as I get better at my craft, I return to the thought that I could make art the financial stability that I need. As I was so confident in my art when I was younger, as I grew older, As I grew older, my confidence began to wither away, like the ocean eroding rocks on a beach, with every new work I created, basically. I noticed more and more of my mistakes. I learned of more financial barriers I needed to overcome in order to get my work noticed by the right people. Worst of all, I began to lose my motivation for why I created art to begin with. When I was a child, like, coloring books, drawing dinosaurs or astronauts wasn't financially stable, though that would have been nice, if I made money off of my early work. It was basically like I thought it was fun. I did it because it was fun and I liked what I made. The bottom line is, most likely, at least for the time being, none of what I make now is going to put food on my table consistently. So now I'm deciding to just make art my food, and creativity, or rather the creation of my art, my stability, that I can lean on regardless of the circumstances. I'm learning to accept the day that I plant the seeds of my creations isn't the same day that those creations will bear fruit. The fear of history repeating itself is very overwhelming, especially in terms of lack of motivation and consistency in my art creation. But I'm not going to let it get me down. I'm not going to let it consume me. I'm bigger than my fears. My creativity is bigger than my fears. Like, whether consistently or not, I commit myself to my creative journey. I did that. I chose to continue to freely be myself, and I do what I must, not only to survive, but to thrive within the means that I have now. If not for myself, then for the creative community that I'm, a part of, knowingly or unknowingly. As I'm reading my notes, I'm still unemployed, more or less. I have some commissions in the works, hopefully, knock on wood. And past work such as Uber or retail didn't really provide living wages or even consistent pay for that matter. Even in a relatively affordable area, my income will like it never really aligned with the cost of living. Now, like a lot of folks in my position, without a secure income, I'm left wondering, how do I move forward? I can't apply to for unemployment because of my rideshare company, being quote unquote contract work. So now my only real options are to continue looking for jobs in the current job economy and, making stuff like this. So I am making this mainly for myself to document my thoughts on this journey, being unemployed, being an artist, living in poverty, and maybe in a hopes that like somehow me talking about this out loud to myself will help someone else. Maybe, I don't know. For the longest time, I remember like being so embarrassed by my financial situation. Like even when I was in college, like even before that, like when I was in high school, um, or even when I was in middle school, like just being sad that I couldn't really, or I didn't feel like I could invite friends over because my mom and I stayed with my aunt. And even before then, like we stayed with friends and family. So it was just kind of like, it didn't really seem like it was a option compared with other kids who were able to invite me over. Um, there's like plenty of other experiences outside of that have like informed my views on poverty and money in general. Um, living in poverty is more than a personal struggle. It's like a collective experience shaped by systemic inequalities. Um, oh, for those who don't know, like I am black, I'm queer, and I live in the southern United States. Like my financial challenges are not isolated. Like they're very much intertwined with intersectional histories of oppression, resistance, and survival of those systems. As an artist, this isn't just about what my experience of poverty looks like. And it reveals a lot about like our broader society. Um, I know I'm not the only person who has experienced these things. Like I know like I'm not the only person that like grew up like learning that for better or for worse, being myself meant basically like uh facing these systemic inequalities compounded by personal challenges like head on. Like there was no other way. You had to like, you can't thug it out. You got to thug it through. Again, like I don't think these experiences are isolated. They're a reflection of my country's history. Like same with what's currently being played out in my country. Like our survival as artists and our creativity as people, I think it depends on how we choose to use and create things within our world. I believe creativity is an essential part of human culture as a whole, and in effect, the global cultural economy, whatever that means to you, whether those in power choose to recognize it or not, whether it's legal to express yourself creatively the way you wish to or not, the ethics surrounding our creativity should only be limited to whether or not what we do causes direct harm to others. I think that if your creativity includes changing your body in ways that goes against societal norms, then you should be able to do it. Like, that's bodily autonomy 101. If it means you express yourself fashionably in ways that that's not like what most people would expect from you, then I think you should be able to do that. Like express yourself however you want. It's your like ideas that form the basis of style. Like it's your style. It may not be someone else's style, but it's your style, and you should be able to express that. Even if it means like speaking truth to like power, not in terms of fashion, but in a general sense. Like by any means, like I feel like you should be able to speak your truth, even if it's wrong. Like I feel like we're better for honest and genuine like conversations and acknowledging different experiences, as long as they are, like I said, genuine and honest. Obviously, people do lie. That is a thing. It's people. I was gonna say a lot of people aren't genuine, but that's not even that's neither here nor there. That's more so like the broader popular culture than it is on a individual like local rather basis. I think that we should be able to like express ourselves creatively in all the ways that are possible. Like, make our world like our canvas, and our minds are and our hearts like our tools of creation. Like, we should be able to freely express ourselves for our survival, express ourselves despite the supposed legality. It wasn't always legal to dress how you wanted to dress. Like, let's get that out the way. It wasn't always legal to be who you are, for lack of a better phrase, like in public. Like, we should be able to let the world see the truth behind our creativity and our autonomy. We should be mindful of like our creative licenses, but we should never like let the threat of authoritarians overwhelm our creative selves. I'm not. And all of this goes to say, like, I'm not imagining my financial struggles. Okay, and neither are you. They are very real, and it's important to acknowledge them without like wholly blaming ourselves or our circumstances. Like, both contribute to the position that we're in, and in my opinion, we are resilient basically by default for not only surviving but facing these challenges head on and looking for clarity, all while creating works of art. And honestly, if you're an artist and you're living in poverty, like, hats off. We are the basis of like most creative like things in popular culture, whether or not popular culture chooses to recognize it or not. I'd like to say, like, folks are feeling the stresses of what's currently going on in terms of the U.S. economy. So some may like wonder to themselves, like, why even try to change something so insurmountable when we have so little power as individuals? And allow me to like try to answer that question with like analogy of sorts. Have you ever seen like a work of art and thought, man, I could draw that, or I could paint that, or like I could make that song, or I could write that poem, or whatever. So you should, and maybe, you try to do so, and instead of creating exactly what you wanted to imitate, you created something you deem as like mediocre or bad in comparison to the original. That comparison, is how we grow our creative skills. If you stopped refining your taste for what you consider is good art, then you would stagnate as an artist. I think this matters because, like, not putting effort into my creativity, my personal world it becomes like so much worse, like, just because I'm not putting effort into it. Clean your room, take a shower, fold your clothes, talk to your neighbors, go outside, like, genuinely go outside, touch grass, like, genuinely hug a tree. Honestly, this is so hippy dippy. It's so woo wah and hoo ha and all the other words, but like, genuinely, like, those things, like spending time with other people outside of your house, like taking care of your house, taking care of yourself, like, that is in essence like what builds the basis for continuing to be creative. Like, not putting effort into making better creative media or public works of art, like, it isn't making our world a better place for ourselves or other people, like, especially when it comes to like movies and television, like people who are artists, people who are like, into like film and television, like, we recognize like the lack of effort especially when it's being presented as something that is better than what it actually is. And that, I feel like that like needs to change. And I truly believe that creative effort. Like genuine, honest, creative integrity is like the only way forward. Um, Otherwise, you might as well like not create art at all. Like, what's the point? You know, if you're not trying to create something that is genuine, that is true, that is like reflective of who you are, who your community is, then like I don't understand. You know, like, and it may be uncomfortable, but like being uncomfortable is how we can grow as artists and as people. So again, I try to change the interest. Why try to change the insurmountable? Not because it's easy, you know, or fun, but because it's right. Because like other people, including future generations, will benefit from the results of trying to change what is considered insurmountable. All right, like billionaires and their apologists want things to remain the way that they are, and we have to prove to ourselves why those wealth hoarders are wrong. Like we have to like try to keep this system of stagnancy and inequality from overtaking us all in all the ways that we can, like from the smallest effort to the greatest triumph, you know? Like I understand this is all easier said than done. Like all of what I'm like spewing from my mind into the void, like it is all easier said than done, obviously. And you know everybody has their own like thing going on, and you know I'm not saying it is easy to do, but I believe that it can be done. I'm not sure how, but I am sure that it is possible at the very least. If humanity can do all those great things that we did in our past, you know, build the pyramids, created writing, agriculture, just the infinite amount of inventions that have slightly made our lives better as a whole, vaccines, media, the radio, like you know, like stuff that helps improve our lives. All if we could do all those things, like I'm sure, like we can make a collective effort for economic justice. I'm sure that like while those of us who are like impoverished are like dealing with it, we are always stronger together. There's like some things that we could do on like an individual basis, like if nothing else, you know. And living within these systems means acknowledging their impact while refusing to let them like define your worth, you know. Like just because like I can recognize that like, oh yeah, no, I'm living in poverty, I'm unemployed, it's been like this since like I was in middle school, blah blah blah. Just because of that doesn't mean like it can't get better. Doesn't mean it won't get better. There have been times in my life where like I genuinely was like, I don't know how this is gonna happen. I don't know how this is, you know, maybe I'm lucky, you know. I am lucky, you know, and I can acknowledge that. But that doesn't make me who I am, you know? Like it's taken me way too long to like consciously recognize that my identity, my creativity, and my experiences as a person just trying to survive in like our current economic system, even in past economic systems, is worth more than the amount of money I can make from it, you know? Living in these systems is about doing what you can with what you have, whether you are in this moment, you know, or like I guess rather wherever you are in this moment. I've come to believe that utilizing this, you know, doing what you can with what you have, into a consistent practice while imagining and building, like actually attempting to build a better future, however that may look to you, will bring about a better future. Like it can't just be like, oh, I'm imagining it and it'll happen. You have to imagine it and then put effort into making that happen. And of course, it'll start off slow. But most things take time to grow, you know, and and nothing lasts forever, including this current political paradigm. Thank the Lord. I think that like living in poverty while working towards the broader positive change in our world is a game of attrition, you know, between those who want a better future for everyone and those who only want a better future for themselves. Like, it is important to acknowledge that those of us who want a better future for everyone also need rest. Like, we need time to like go to sleep, and like, you know, take our time to act with intention and to do what we can with what we have, you know. But we must never give in to what these folks want, okay? Like what these billionaires want, okay? The billionaires and the oligarchs, we must never give in. Let me stop. That's a terrible Bernard impression. Anyway, like billionaires, like they have like plenty of assets to spare, you know, in order to attempt to stop true progressive, like positive change from occurring, you know, like they don't need to rest in order to like get their agenda on the table, okay? Like they have like money in order to pay other people to do the thing like that we're trying to do, you know, like 10 times faster than what we are able to do, you know. And that doesn't mean that we should like not try to like stop them from doing that. Like, you know, like billionaires and their apologists, they know like changing our system for the better, of like everybody within it, will bring about an end of their exploitation and the hoarding of insurmountable amounts of wealth. However, like one thing that we have to like one thing that like we have like but they don't is our creativity and our faith to actually see the world as we wish it to be, you know. Like to them the world is set, you know, it's gonna be insurmountable. I think I've used that word too many times. Like the world is set to them. Like it's gonna be like basically it's gonna end in disaster. They fear doomsday, you know. But to us, like I've realized, like these folks don't actually believe in the dogma they regurgitate. You know, they spout like this really optimistic utopian future, but what they really believe is that like everything is going to end and there's no point. And so like they're super self-destructive with their wealth, you know, and they know it because you might as well enjoy it while you still can. That's their whole thing. You might as well enjoy the wealth that you have while you still can, because eventually at some point something is going to happen to where you're going to have to go to that doomsday bunker. You're going to have to fly to Mars, you know. To them, life is basically just a bottomless pit of pleasure seeking because their brains have been completely influenced by the greed and the lack of true fulfillment and empathy. You know, like creativity and faith in your neighbors and your community like brings like actual empathy, you know, into your life. It brings actual fulfillment into your lives. Like billionaires, they hide themselves away and prepare for doomsday because they know like they're scared. Like they know that like something is gonna give. Something's gonna give, and to them they think it's gonna be the worst case scenario because of course, you know, human nature. We prepare for the worst. In any and all points. Or we always, but the question I guess remains is, are we prepared for the worst? Like when it happens, I don't know. It's they you know, they speak of escaping to Mars, escaping into space. They speak as if like they want to like abandon the planet. I think it's because of the amount of shame like that they feel towards like what they're doing and how they're living their lives, whether they recognize it consciously or unconsciously. Like the amount of shame, it's like it has to be incomprehensible, you know. Like I don't think the brain is capable of like processing that much emotion. Like we as people who don't have titanic amounts of wealth. We understand like life is more than just how much money you have or how many things you have. It's about like building a better future for everybody around you, like despite of the circumstances, you know, like because like that's the life we've had to live. Like we had to like work to do what we can for everybody within our immediate like friend circles or like family or whatever to like live a slightly better life. And like we may not always be able to achieve that, but that's the point. That it's the effort that counts, you know. Like we know that change is possible because on occasion, you know, against ridiculous odds, like it has happened. Like whether you call it luck or God or divine intervention, whatever, like it has happened, like to us as individuals, and sometimes like on a wider scale. And of course, all of that comes with its own pros and cons, but we are aware of the corrupt oligarchs that have squeezed our lives so tightly as to not let any like drop of wealth like make its way to the people collectively. Like the same people who make this system of exploitation work in the first place. Like make it make sense. Like like you're basically you're leaning into the sword, billionaires. Like what are you doing? And I don't know if they even consciously recognize it or not. I think they're just like in some sort of like self-destructive feedback loop, because they recognize like, okay, yeah, I don't believe there's any real end in sight. I'm just only saying like I'm spouting these utopian idealistic like views of what the future would look like, because that's what I want it to look like, but I don't actually believe that's going to happen, which is why I'm going to go to my doomsday bunker when stuff hits the fan, which is why I'm going to move to this island that's very remote once, you know, we start getting taxed 90% after every $1 billion we make, or whatever it is, you know. Like they've chosen a self-defeating nonsensical ideologue to masquerade as like the working class's savior, when like in actuality they're robbing the very systems hundreds of millions of people, if not billions of people, rely on and input into. Like I don't understand how they can't see like this. I'm not an economist, okay? I am not an expert. I am an artist first and foremost, but I don't believe that like it is inevitable. It's I don't believe like it's inevitable for them to fail. It's possible that like maybe somehow they end up exploiting us all until there's nothing left to exploit, and then they get this utopian future somehow, you know. But like I don't know. Like I feel like they must fail. It's the only logical conclusion that I can come up with, you know. Like all of this leads to like everyone's destruction. Like everyone's destruction. And they know it, which is why they're building the bunkers and wanting to go to Mars in the first place. And they're making it easier for us to make excuses to win, or even make arguments to win, or build our own systems outside of this one to win, you know. And I don't think, you know, we're winning as it were is possible in a short amount of time. Obviously, I've come to this conclusion after like many nights of no sleep and despair. But like with the advent of like generative AI and the resurgence of fascist and authoritarian rhetoric, we must not forget that humans are essential in the creation of art, not machines and algorithms. Okay, like they're putting all their eggs in one basket. Okay, and that basket is, we'll just use AI to make movies, and you'll still buy the slop, and you know you'll be happier for it, and we'll basically make everything run off of AI, and no one will have to do anything except for you. You're gonna have to do all that, or actually no, in fact you're not gonna do any of that, because AI is gonna take all your jobs, and we're not gonna give you any money because we'll have all the wealth, because you'll still be buying the AI goods, the AI slop that we produce. And I feel like that's just such a stupid just such a stupid conclusion to come to. Like I feel like it's delusional, you know, um like I feel like, you know, the people who spout AI really want AI to work. They keep doing it because they think that it'll catch on. And sure, like, new trends rise and fall in and out of popularity throughout history, you know, and throughout our history. And I believe that, like, new art movements reflecting our realities are sure to spring up from this paradigm shift, you know? Like, this will introduce both opportunities and, like, challenges for artists and workers everywhere. And I think it's our responsibility as artists to try to, like, meet these challenges as opportunities and advocate for protection of our creative integrity and creative license. Like, I deeply believe that poverty deeply affects art, creativity, and our collective identity as artists. But artists, like all sorts of people, are resilient, and through sharing our stories and helping and utilizing our community, we and others, like, can advocate for systemic change. Like, I believe that, like, artists can create meaningful work while challenging unjust, inequitable systems, you know. And it kind of reminds me of this James Baldwin quote I heard. I like, ultimately, I think survival as an artist living in poverty can be both empowering, for individuals and, like, for communities, you know. Like, and survival shouldn't be the goal, but, like, survival is how we keep going, you know, like fostering the very cultural richness that we live in on a daily basis, and driving progress toward a better creative future. You know, I believe, like, survival isn't the only goal. Again, like, life is the goal. Okay, like, I think survival isn't integral to the creation of art. Life is integral to the creation of art, you know? But in order to live life, we have to survive. Okay? Like, survival is only possible. It's only a possible outcome if things go well, you know? And things don't always go well. So, like, I think artists living in poverty don't have to be a stereotype, you know? Like, the creation of art doesn't require somebody to be impoverished. It requires us to do what we can with what we have for ourselves and for the folks we love, you know, and to share those efforts with other people. But yeah, that's just, I just wanted to get that out of my system. Feel free to ask questions about my thoughts or anything I've mentioned in the video comments. What did you think about that clip from James Baldwin, or that quote from James Baldwin? Like, do you agree or disagree? You know, do you agree or disagree with anything I've said? Go ahead and type it in the comments section. I'll try to read all my comments on this video. But, like, this video, and hopefully the series of videos that hopefully will follow from this one, are mainly for my own creative documentation. Sort of like a journal of sorts. Anyway, I'm going to keep doing what I do. You keep doing what you do. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Peace.